What's that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Talk Geekly!
Holy hounds of Hades, geeks and geekettes. Tom here, the resident Kryptonian. And of course, I am joined by my friend and yours. He is the Gotham Knight, Cody.
Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? We are Talk Geekly, bringing the latest and the greatest from comic books to video games and so much more from the geek culture. And man, oh man, do we have some heavy-hitting titles coming at you this week. But first, Tom, what's been up, my man? How's your week been?
Hey, my week has actually been really good after a little setback, feeling under the weather. It was nice to bounce back and, work on my video game a little bit more. My personal video game, not the Game Jam video game, which, by the way, guys, please check it out on itch.io. Help me stay in the top 100 for this Game Jam. I would really appreciate that. So what about you? What's been like the top priority for you this past week?
So I just recently got my Secret Labs Batman chair. Fucking excited for it. God, it's a beauty. And we got our novel keys, new keyboard in. So I've been working on kind of just getting those together and testing and breaking them in. Outside of that, really just working on, creating better YouTube content and just striving to, be a perfectionist, I guess.
Yeah, that's a bit of an understatement. We all know how much you like to make sure everything is just right. It's not a bad thing. That is definitely a good thing. So I'm stoked to get this show on the road. Let's go ahead and jump into some news, right?
This week in Geek.
So right off the rip, we are facing some heavy controversy, and this time it's coming from Ubisoft. It looks like Assassin's Creed Valhalla has really, taken a dive for the worse. A Redditor just had this post where they showed that there are 9 armor sets locked behind microtransaction. That equals as many armor sets that you can unlock in the entire base game. So like in a free-to-play game, we get it. You got to make your money from the microtransactions. But in a game I already paid $60-$70 for, what the hell, man?
Yeah, it's a touchy subject, honestly. I think that in all reality, we as gamers and as a community need to understand that this is the direction that the business is going. I'm not saying it's okay and I approve of it, but we have to come to the understanding that they're going to give you a game. Yes, and it should be a complete game. However, for the most part right now, it's not, and they're going to sneak in those microtransactions as long as they don't affect the actual, when I say gameplay, I mean like pay to win type shit. As long as it's not going that route, I'm gonna have to side with the game companies on this. They have a right to ask you for a little bit of extra money if you want a prettier costume.
But I mean, and just to touch in real quick, I actually own this game. I actually did buy some of this DLC just to see, and the weapons you get are significantly better than what you start out with, so I would say it is a huge pay to win. Like you are given a huge advantage right off the rip.
That's a problem. That's definitely when I say no, this is just totally wrong and they've got to rework that. But like I said, cosmetics to me makes sense, but pay to win, that's a touchy subject. Now, one company that has had some issues with pay to win, especially when it comes to Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch, is Activision Blizzard, and they've actually just recently announced that they have more remasters in the works. CFO Dennis Durkin came out on the latest financial call and said that we have a few other things up our sleeve in terms of remastered content that we'll unveil in due course. I thought this was a very important statement that he said, because we've got BlizzCon Line coming up the weekend of February 19th. And I've got to believe that we're going to get the official announcement of the Diablo 2 remake, which is going to be done by, of course, Vicarious Visions. But I cannot, stop and think that, hey, maybe we'll get another announcement and probably see a StarCraft remastered by that same studio, Vicarious Visions, which I would love to see.
So, Tom, I know we're both pretty big fans of the Diablo series. I gotta ask, man, what was your class? What was your favorite class in Diablo 2?
Honestly, I've only played Diablo 2 one time. most of my Diablo experience, because I didn't get on that train until Diablo 3. That was like the first Diablo game that I actually like hardcore played. So I couldn't give you a class from Diablo 2. I'll tell you, from Diablo 3, it was definitely the Demon Hunter. That's the one that I had the most fun with. But that's why I'm excited for that remake, because it gives me a chance to actually get in there and see what all the fuss was about.
Hey, absolutely. And you know what? It's going to let you see that fuss in brand new, beautiful graphics. And what more could you ask for to experience that? Speaking of remakes and experiencing things that happened so long ago, we are getting Coming to America 2, and the new trailer has been released by Amazon. So this is like, what, a comeback of 30 years in the making? Eddie Murphy is resuming the role of Akeem, and he's coming back to America. It looks like he had a son that he never knew about, and it's up to him to find him, to take over being king of Zamunda. I think I said that correctly. I have no idea. And I don't know, man. I'm excited. I remember watching this movie when I was a kid. And so this is crazy. This is something that's almost older than me.
Yeah, you know, I was excited when it was originally announced, and seeing the trailer had me even more hyped, because I love the fact that they've got both Eddie and Arsenio doing multiple characters. These guys were comedic geniuses, and I'm sure they still are. So getting to see them in a movie once again, reprising their roles, I honestly can't wait. I'm sure it's going to be hilarious, and bring it on. I'm kind of wondering, is this gonna drop on? Do you know if this is dropping on Amazon Prime, or is it just a theater release?
So it's funny you say that, Tom. This is only debuting, and I think staying exclusive on Amazon Prime, and it's dropping March 5th. So it's coming up right around the corner.
Perfect. I mean, great example of another company taking advantage of direct to stream for these premiere, what would normally be somewhat of a theater blockbuster. And I appreciate that. I'm all on board for not having to go to the movie theaters and watch these movies that I'm super excited for. Now, one thing that I was very, very excited for was the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. Huge fan of the original game, and it was cool to know that they were doing a remake. However, just like everyone out there on the interwebs, I myself was a little taken back by the look of the game, the graphic style. Well, turns out that the game is getting pushed back again. So we did get a pushback from its previous March release date, and we don't even know when the next date is. They have not told us. Ubisoft made it clear that they wanted to separate the look and feel of this game. They didn't want it to look like Assassin's Creed or feel like Assassin's Creed, which they thought that a lot of gamers would kind of get that vibe, especially in a Prince of Persia game. It does kind of have a similar feel and setting to some of those older Assassin's Creed game. I'm only hoping that Ubisoft takes this time to really fine-tune the graphics. I personally think that the game deserves a much more cartoonier style, but that's just my artistic bias kind of shining through there. We're just kind of have to wait and see which direction they go with this. Hopefully they do rework it and make the community happy.
Tom, you know, it's funny you brought up Amazon as well, because I'd like to end my part of the news on the fact that Jeff Bezos is stepping down, and he's handing his CEO position to Andy Jassy, a 24-year-old Amazon veteran who's helping the company pioneer cloud computing. I think it's a big thing, you know, just touching base on what you said earlier about going to the cloud. We're seeing so many companies head in that direction. And a big part of this is Amazon saw its company just boom with online stores and online services. So it's only natural that we're seeing this step towards that cloud-based service. Just to give you an idea, in the 7 years that since he's owned Amazon, it's jumped around 715% in just income growth alone. So, you know, I think it's pretty remarkable. It's crazy too, because when you think of billionaires, you think of this guy. So the fact that he's stepping down and handing that over, I don't know. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to hear that news earlier this week. But I mean, with him staying on board as, I believe chairman of the board or something like that, I think it's going to be business as usual for Amazon. But I feel like Bezos made that decision because it's probably a personal thing. He might be ready for, that time of his life where he doesn't have that much responsibility on his plate and so many moving parts. And now that's not to say that he's not going to still have a bunch of moving parts to deal with, but I feel like, let one of the other guys start controlling things while you can focus on more of your passion projects. So kudos to him. I mean, the dude's a billionaire and he's most likely going to stay that way. So hopefully they bring somebody else with some fresh ideas onto the team. Okay, so my last piece of news, I wouldn't say is necessarily news. I mean, to me, it definitely is news and is news worthy. I'm going to be talking about what just occurred on the latest episode of WandaVision. So for those of you who have not seen the most recent episode, please, this is your warning. Spoiler warning. Run away now. Mute the podcast for about a minute or so because I'm about to spoil the holy crap out of it. This week, Geeks and Geekettes, we did get to see the return of Quicksilver in WandaVision. And not the Quicksilver that we know from Age of Ultron, the Quicksilver from the Fox franchise X-Men. That's right, Evan Peters showed up on WandaVision, and let me tell you, even though I knew that this was a possibility, because there was just nothing but chatter all over the internet that this was gonna happen, even though I knew that, my mind, my body, my emotions, everything about me just was not prepared to see it happen.
Absolutely.
This is groundbreaking. This is shattering. The universes have finally collided. I've been waiting to see some sort of mutant in the MCU. And I think more than anything, that's the most important thing to take away from this, is we do have an official mutant in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Evan Peters, Quicksilver. Where are we going next?
So many things, so many questions. Why don't you think she ended up trying to bring back her brother, or anything like that? What's your thoughts on that?
So I think there was a really important part in the episode where she started talking to the twins about not being able to bring people back to life. So I feel like that was already setting us up for the whole okay, she had no intentions of bringing anyone back to life. I don't think she necessarily can. And we'll eventually get some explanation as to how Vision is quote unquote alive. But she had that talk with the twins, and then, when we see Quicksilver later and see that it's not the one from her universe, I mean, for me, it all made sense. It was like she can't bring him back.
Okay, hold on. Let's bounce back, though. Didn't Tony and Bruce, didn't they say they had something that would keep Vision alive after they took the gem out? You remember that?
So the whole idea was they would be able to keep him alive because they thought they theorized that there was enough of their work in that body and enough of Jarvis to basically disconnect the ties to the Mind Stone and still have that personality there.
So what if that personality got downloaded somewhere? You know what I mean?
So now we're going to get into theory crafting places.
I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I love that because I've always believed that Shuri was actually able to get a copy of Vision's mind and soul per se while she was trying to separate him from the stone.
Well, he has to come back some way. He has to come back in one way or another. And the way we just, seeing this happen, that theory, to me is off the table, at least.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see. This show was like trash for me. Honestly, I thought the show was pure garbage. And the last two episodes have at least thrown things for me that felt finally we're reaching a point where it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. But guys, with that being said, that does wrap up this news, but stay tuned, guys. We do have some hot issues right off the press.
Fresh Balls.
All right, so for this week's comic books, I've got some really, really good ones, but I'm going to start off with X Factor number 7. This is written by Leah Williams, and we've got art from David Baldion. Now, I want to start off by saying what I like about the X Factor books and what keeps bringing me back to reading each new issue is this is not your typical superhero book. I love the murder mystery investigation feel of the entire series, and we're picking up on this issue, still trying to figure out what's going on with Siren and why she continues to commit suicide. Dakin is certainly the star for me in this series. I love the character, and he's currently tracking her around the globe while the team is doing a little side investigation. Now, we actually end up learning what's going on with Siren, and it's kind of out of left field. There was no build up to this. There really was no explanation per se, but apparently she's actually a being known as the Morrigan. This is a goddess of death and battle who travels from body to body every time she dies to an unwilling female host. The book is awesome. We get a moment where Dakin is basically being just wrecked by the Morrigan and left for dead, and all the while he's doubting if anyone actually gives a crap about him. But then, of course, North Star does find him, brings him back to the Boneyard, and then that's where the book kind of takes a weird turn. We jump a couple days into the future, and there are only 3 members of the team still alive. And there's an image that I loved, and I'll tell you guys, we've got North Star and his sister Aurora in what looks to be a Celtic circle of sacrifice. Their bodies are dead, head to head. And I don't know where we're going with this, but I love a lot of the character development in X Factor, so I can't wait to see what the next issue has to show us.
So that the goddess you said of death that takes host over like without them being willing, like how many of those did she kill, or is she like heavily involved with like what's going on like at the end?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like this is the first time I'm hearing of this character. Was not prepared for that, and at the end we're led to believe that she's the one who killed the entire team, but we don't get to really find out.
Oh, I got you. Well, that definitely sounds like an interesting chance to dive into Future State Swamp Thing issue number 2. And this was kind of my first like take into Swamp Thing. You know, I've read an issue here and there, but this was a unique issue. This kind of was a longer one that kind of gave us a more fleshed out point of view to the story, with the Swamp Thing himself, you know, just wrecking things across the globe, and you know has been for centuries. You know, the shadow of the Swamp Thing, you know, supreme, and the world's been at peace until force of humanity just starts fighting against the plants and the green and everything, fueled by none other than Woodrow Wilson and his appetite for power. And things really take a turn. You think things are going to go one way, and the Swamp Thing, of course, has to protect the planet at all cost, even if it cost him, everyone dear, surrounding him. So, take that for what you will. Once again, this was an issue that kind of focused more on the story. So without spoiling too much, I'm going to just leave you guys at that. So this has art done by Mike Perkins and was written by Ram V.
So I gotta ask, when you said Woodrow Wilson, I mean, like you're dead.
No,
about the president.
Not the president. No, that's just I might be. It looks like it's Woodrow. I mean, it's spelled Wood and then RUE at the end. So
okay. I was like, whoa,
like
this is taking place a little backwards in time there, or what's going on with that? I was actually intrigued. I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds interesting.
DC's continuity has been pretty butchered, but I don't know if they're ready to go to that length yet.
I gotcha. Well, I'm glad you got to enjoy a little Swamp Thing. One of my favorite DC characters for sure. Now, I'm going to be going into one of my favorite Marvel characters. That is Mr. Eddie Brock, Venom, issue number 33. This is still written by Donny Cates. God, Donny Cates, I love you. And we've got art from Iban Coelho, another superstar artist that Marvel has on their side, doing amazing things. And the Venom story arc is not slowing down. Now, we start off the book with Spider-Man giving a talk to Dylan Brock after, of course, what we had in the previous issue where Eddie's dead. For all intents and purposes, he's dead. His body is dead. And Spider-Man just gives him this long talk about choices and whether Dylan is willing to step up or step back after the death of his father, because Dylan does have the power and the ability to stop Null. I mean, the kid is super powerful. And we see that Eddie's spirit, his Codex spirit, of course, is still alive, and it's within the hive and trying to escape. And he actually has this moment when he's talking to Flash Thompson, realizing that his son is the key to everything, and he actually can feel his son fighting against Null and feel Null growing weak. Awesome book, guys. I mean, as we continue to see the progression of the character Eddie Brock and of his son Dylan Brock, I can't help but just get enthralled in everything that's going on with these two characters. And as things are starting to look awesome and everybody's, the heroes are back, they're all broken free from Null's grasp, we end up right where we were just a few issues back, with Null's hand around Eddie's neck. And the King in Black certainly looks like he's got the upper hand.
So one thing I'm left pretty curious, like, how do you feel Eddie and Dylan's relationship is developing as these issues continue to go on and on? Like, how do you just think that overall atmosphere between the two is starting to develop?
I like where they started, because they started both believing that they were just brothers. And as the revelations began, you can really see that Dylan was searching for a father figure. And even though Eddie wasn't prepared to be that, he still stepped up to the plate and delivered. And you saw the bond growing, and it is actually being done very well. Donny Cates has a really good grasp of the characters and what they both need to play off of each other.
I think that's a really awesome explanation. It definitely intrigues me more to want to pick up these issues and just read and see how everything's developing. Just how, with how excited you get every time you talk about it. Something that's been really exciting to me has definitely been Batman. I cannot get enough of Future State, the next Batman, and we're starting off with issue number 3. This continues the adventures of the next Batman, and he is, for lack of better words, not looking too hot. He captured this pair of villains, for lack of better words, after they tracked down this murderer and killed him. They were exacting revenge, but Batman, as you know, only serves justice. The thing is, these 3 are caught by none other than the magistrate, so he's kind of left with this choice: either let them be murdered as he escapes, or protect them and potentially get murdered himself, because these guys have a shoot on sight. So, Batman just wants to get these guys through Gotham City, get them to the police department, and set them on trial. And I don't know. Things get pretty crazy. Batman's only one person, and he is not faring too hot as it is. This is also a multi-story series, though, so we get a little bit of the Outsiders with Katana reuniting with Black Lightning. And then we also get Duke Thompson, and he is leading a liberation through Gotham against the oppression of the magistrate. It's getting wild. And then you top it off with the Arkham Knights. We have Astrid Arkham, who was if you remember from Detective, the adversary that just completely destroyed Batman. And she's going up against the Peacekeeper, I think number 1 or either number 1 or 6. I forgot, but they are causing all warfare. It is getting wild. Now, be sure to check this out. This was written by none other than Brandon Thompson, Paul Jenkins, John Ridley, with art done by Jack Herbert, Summit Kumar, and Laura Braga.
All right, so we all know how much of a Batman guy you are. So I think the real question here is this character Batman? Like,
so
when he's not, without the mask, or does he ever take the mask off? I mean,
so this is the Bruce Wayne, I believe. I know there was a different Batman, but I explained when we first talked about this, there are several different timelines. So the Black Batman, I don't believe was this one. But the thing is, they showed part of the suit coming off, and it was like a shadow, so you couldn't really tell. You know what I mean? Like, it was so hard. I like, it definitely wasn't like a darker skin complexion. It looked like more of a lighter skin complexion with a shadow casted on. From what I remember, the Batman that, I remember being the first black Batman had a way darker complexion. So it was one of those, like, you've seen a very brief glimpse of it and that was it.
Okay, because I was just under the assumption that Bruce was just exclusively to the detective book, and then the other Batman was for the other book. I could be completely wrong then.
So, and real quick, I'm just going to be real quick about this. We did miss last week. Last week did give us a little bit of a filler insight on how Bruce Wayne survived, what he did to kind of seek refuge, and like what he was doing. So this, this is actually 100% Bruce Wayne, because now that I come to think about it, he started off on the motorcycle, and that's how he started off with the issue from last week.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess I don't get to find out more about the new Batman. That's okay. I'm sure I'll get a chance here in the upcoming future state. Now, if you guys are fans of some of our older episodes, I always like to every now and then jump into something that is not from Marvel, not from DC, but from one of those independent publishers out there. And this week I tackled IDW's Chained to the Grave. Now, this is an issue 1 written by Andy Eschenbach and Brian Lewell, and then we've got art from Kate Sharon. Let me tell you, this book, I don't think I came into this prepared for what I was going to get. It's set in the old Western times, and it begins with someone rising from the dead. The grave says Roy Mason, and he's actually greeted by his widow, and she's all too quick to show him that she's missed him. She's missed him for a while. I'll tell you what, we get some pants getting pulled down and things are about to go freaky, but then we get the kids running into the room to interrupt their, reunion. Really interesting artwork, kind of cartoony, and just, I feel like this could be a show on Cartoon Network. It's got a really fresh and fun style to it. And the character design for Roy Mason, zombie-like with skin deteriorating, just really, really cool. But we eventually learned that his death was the result of him not delivering gold, which he made a deal with a rather unsavory character, and that guy wasn't really happy about it. Things get good towards the end. They really pick up a lot of kind of action, not action, but there's a chase, a typical cowboy chase scene. And I really had a lot of fun with the way they drew the scene and some of the dialogue. And then the big reveal that Mason's wife, she actually got him brought back to life because she planned on betraying him the whole time. She was working with the unknown villain, and he's got to make an unthinkable choice. He's basically stuck there having to decide, do I let my wife get away with this and take me in, or do I continue to save our children? And he shoots his wife in the head. I wasn't expecting that. Really weird twist. I'm actually gonna read issue 2 because I want to know more about the villain. We got to see him. We got to see him interact with people, but we didn't really get to understand why and where he came from.
So, with this being an indie story and everything, you said you really, really loved, or maybe not loved, but you really enjoyed the graphics on how it looked. Do you think the story followed suit, or do you think the story was better? Like, in your opinion, what do you think was the thing that drove you to want to read issue number 2 the most?
It was definitely the story. There's a lot of, I love mysteries, so the mystery elements to this is what's bringing me in. I want to know more about Roy. I want to know more about the villain. I want to know how Roy was brought back to life. There's so many questions I have that I need answers to.
Well, that definitely sounds like an interesting read, and hopefully it continues that vibe that's kind of drawing you into it. With that being said, guys, this does wrap up our week's take on your fresh polls. But before we go, Tom, what are you looking forward to on the oncoming days? Do you have any hints or any leaks about your game production?
Well, I'm building a team right now. I had a couple interviews with some programmers and some sound designers, and I've got 3 programmers signed up for the project. I've got a sound designer, and I have 2 really good friends, you being one of them, who I'm bringing in onto the project to help with some of the story elements and fleshing out the world. So a lot of things, a lot of moving parts for this project, and I'm just super stoked to continue building it. You know, it's nice to have my friends on board with personal projects, but what about you? What's next on the docket for Cody there?
So I am actually in the process of building a team myself. I am with my YouTube, I'm looking to expand and try to just, I guess, conquer more and more content. So I'm looking on hiring on at least one editor, if not two, to be trying out different projects. One of those being something maybe with my daughter, and I don't know if that's going to be something we even release to the public. That might be something that I just make for her to have when she grows up, because I'm not going to lie, I caught her watching YouTube and watching this Roblox player, and it was adorable watching her just be so obsessed with it. And I showed her that, I'm like, hey, Dad does this too. And I seen her sneak a little subscription on my YouTube channel. And when I dropped her off to her mom's last week, I noticed that she left a comment on my YouTube channel saying she loved me and, that, love Jen. And I man, I'm just telling you, my heart exploded.
I bet that was a moment.
But yeah, guys, with that being said, that does wrap up this week's podcast. You can catch us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and so much more at Talk Geekly. And Tom, why don't you send them off with that beautiful, beautiful take?
As always, keep it geekly.
What's that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Talk Geekly.